Hey guys, this is Ed from Mission Ed Possible. Welcome back to my EdVenture series where we're making a roguelike on the Atari 8-bit. So this week we're going to be adding monsters. That's going to be a really cool thing to be able to have those on our map. So let's get into it. So today we're going to be adding monsters, and the way to do that is we're going to be adding them to our character sets. Now if you remember, we had some characters that were left out of our character set specifically to be able to add the monsters in here. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, since we're going to be modifying the character sets, we're not going to be able to be using them from the ROM section directly. So what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to copy our character set from ROM into RAM, and then we can dynamically add the monsters to that character set. So let's do that. So to start off, we need to add some sections of RAM that we're going to be using for our current character set. So we're going to add them, let's see, right here I think is a good spot, right underneath the player missile graphics, since it's a nice 1K boundary. So we're going to say cur character set. Now we're going to leave room for both A and B because we're soon going to be doing animation, and to do the animation we're going to need to be able to switch between the A and B character sets. So let's go ahead and put this at 7800. Current character set A 1K. Character set B, and that's going to be at 7C B. Okay. Now, so we've set up that location, and now what we need to do is we need to copy from RAM to ROM. Let's go ahead and create a macro for that. So let's go ahead and do macro. I'm going to create a copy data macro, just a generic one. Source, destination, and the number of pages. Okay. And so we're going to do MWA source to temp adder 1, dest to temp adder 2. Let's go ahead and set X and Y to 0. We're going to set up a loop here. We're going to load it in from temp adder 1, and then we're going to store it in temp adder 2 with a Y offset. We're going to increment Y, and we're going to keep going until it has hit 0 again. So we're just going to say B and E loop. So that will copy one page of data. One page being 256 bytes. And now what we want to do is we want to increment temp adder 1 plus 1. So this is going to be the high byte of temp adder 1. And we're also going to do the same thing with temp adder 2. And now to keep track of how many pages we've copied, we'll go ahead and increment X. And then we're going to compare that with the number of pages, and until that equals 0, we'll do a loop. We'll do it end M. Should be pretty straightforward. This is something I haven't done in here. That's a bug. This is something I haven't done in this series before. But, it makes a lot more sense than trying to deal with, there's a macro for like ADW and add word and do all this stuff when all you really need to do is increment that high byte. Okay, so let's, in the beginning of our program, let's go through and do that copying. So we need, for a character set, we need 4 pages to be able to copy. So we're just going to run copy data, and then we're going to do the char set dungeon A, and we're going to put in char set A, and 4 pages. Okay. Let's make sure this works. Okay, no problem. We didn't change anything yet except to copy the data. But what we want to do now is we want to be using, instead of this char set dungeon A, we want to be using this char set A. So what we want to do here is in this D list right here where it's saying char set dungeon A, all we need to do is change this to char set A, and that will use the copied one to RAM. So let's make sure that still works. Okay, yep, still works. So we still have the characters. All we've done is referenced the ones in RAM as opposed to the ones in ROM. So now we can go through and copy monsters into that section. So let's go ahead and do that. So we need to create a new procedure for that. Because we are going to be wanting to do multiple different types of monsters in the future. Right now, if we look at our monsters, we've got a whole bunch of monsters in here. You know, excluding the dragons, you know, we have 24 different monsters, and we only have a spot for 12 of them in our program. So, or in our character set, I should say. So we can only really hold 12 at a time. And so what we're going to want to do in the future is set it up so that depending on the level you're on, it will choose a window of these characters. So like the beginning levels might only have the top 8 of these characters or these monsters. And then maybe the second level will have more, you know, and keep increasing the number of monsters that we have so that we have less of the, you know, smaller monsters or the, you know, the easy monsters and a lot more of the harder monsters. So, you know, we'll have to tweak that as we go. But for now, what we're going to do is just worry about getting some monsters on the screen. So let's go ahead and worry about the 12 monsters that we have that are the main, you know, the first 12, okay? So what we want to do is we want to create a new function or procedure, and I'm going to call it copy monsters. And I'm going to go ahead and put it down here. We may want to put this in a new file at some point, but so I'm going to do, let's see, do I want to do it as a macro or as a procedure? I think I'm going to do it as a macro. And the reason why is because there's some, it could go either way. Let's do this as a macro for right now, okay? In fact, let's go ahead and put it in the macros file. Might as well, right? So let's go macro, copy monsters, and we're gonna say the start number and the end number. So this is going to be where, you know, if we're going to be starting at 0 for the easiest monsters, going up to however many we want. Now, keep in mind, we only can do 12 possible ones based on the locations that we have in the character set, but that should be fine. So we're going to say, we're going to be looking at the monsters A, we're going to put that in temp editor 1. So this is going to be the first frame of the monster animations. And then we're going to say character set A. We're going to put that in temp editor 2. Okay. Now, one of the things that we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to move over in our character set to be where we're going to want it to appear. So we want the monsters to appear in this section right here. Hopefully you can see my mouse pointer. The black section, okay? And so we need to advance our pointer down that many. And I have figured out that it's there's 86 characters, and then each one is 8 bytes. So what we're gonna wanna do here is we're gonna do an ADW temp adder 2, and we're going to do 86 times 8. So that's going to be how many bytes we need to go ahead in the character set to be able to start our monsters. Okay. And now we're going to say, we're going to load in the LDA. We're going to put that number in start in there, and we're going to multiply it by 2, doing an ASL, and we're going to put that in Y. Now the reason for that is, if you remember, we have 2 character wide tiles. So that's why we have to multiply everything by 2, because we're actually copying characters. We're going to do something similar with end. We're going to actually, so we got to multiply it by 2, but then we have to multiply it by 8 because each monster is 8 bytes wide. So we're just going to put in 3 more ASLs. Okay. We're going to store that in a temp variable, and then we're going to loop it. We're going to load in temp adder 1. Same thing we did before. We're going to store it in temp adder 2, increment Y, and now we're going to compare it with temp. BD loop. Basically, make sure how many bytes we've actually transferred. So typically we're transferring individual characters. This time we're transferring each individual byte from it. Okay. And yeah, so let me just end M. So the big thing here is setting our start and ending properly. Okay, so now what we're going to want to do is we're going to actually want to call copy monsters, and we'll go ahead and do that up here. And we're going to want to go ahead and put this in here, copy monsters. And we want to start at 0, and let's go ahead and put the first 8 in there. Okay. And let's make sure we're using we're using these numbers here, the pound sign, to make sure we're using the right thing here. Okay. So we now are copying the monsters. Let's make sure everything works. No change. We're not expecting a change yet. So now what we want to do after we've copied the monsters is we want to click the like button so that other people can see this video. Thanks. So now what we need to do is we need to place the monsters. And so what we're going to do is we're going to want to find out how many monsters we're going to want to be putting on the screen or on the map. Okay. And at the beginning, we're going to want to have a few monsters, and as we get further deeper into the dungeons, we're going to want to have more monsters. And in a future episode, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a table to be able to say, for this level of dungeon, we want to have this many monsters, etc. For now, I'm just going to pick an arbitrary number, and we can go from there. So let's create a new procedure for that, though. And I think I am going to use a procedure for it. And I'm going to call it place monsters. Okay, and we're going to say byte X and A. And we're going to use registers for that. So we're going to be using X and A for the values you're going to be sending in. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to say number of monsters, and then we're going to say the max monster number. So in other words, on a beginning level, it'll only have, say, 2 or 3 monsters on it, whereas a higher level you'll have more. And this is the variety kind of the monsters. So we're going to take the A variable, or we're going to take the A register, and we're going to store that into temp2. So actually I'm using temp2 here, and I have not created that before. So let me go ahead and add that. Let's go up here in our ever long list of variables in the 0 page. So we're going to call it temp2, because we already have temp up here somewhere. Temp is right up here. Okay. So we're going to store a, for safekeeping, into temp2. And then we're going to create a label called pick. And we're going to get a random number, okay? Now, for now, I'm going to say random 8, but there's a problem with that, and I'll get into why in a minute here. But what we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to trim down that number quickly before doing a compare, just because we're going to have to be doing this a lot. And actually, we're not going to. That seems dumb. What we're going to do is we're going to compare. We're going to take this random 8 and we're going to compare it to temp2. Okay, so that's our temp2 is going to be our the max monster number. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to compare it to temp2, and then we're going to say if it's greater than, we're going to want to keep picking. Okay, so I'm going to do a BCS pick. So that means it's going to keep going on this until it picks one that we like. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add 43 to that number. Now the reason why it's 43 is because it's the same thing as what we were talking about before. 86 divided by 2, 43. So this is going to be in the black area right there. Okay. And we're going to store that number into temp. Okay. And now we're going to place the monster. Now we've picked the monster we're going to use. Now we're going to be placing it. Okay. Now the idea here is we're going to be taking our populated map and we're going to pick an X and Y location randomly. And what we're going to do is we're going to see if that location is a floor tile. If it is a floor tile, then we're going to go ahead and place our monster. If it is not a floor tile, then we need to go through and try and pick another X and Y value. So that we make sure that wherever we're placing this monster, it will be a valid location. Okay. All right. So in place, we're going to do random 8 again, and what we're going to do is we're going to want to trim off certain bits on here, so that we want to place it only in certain locations within the map. Now. We can do that a couple ways. We can use the compare, we can use an and. I am going to use compare, and I'm going to say compare that with map width. Okay. And then if it's greater than, we're going to want to go for it. We're going to want to go grab the random number again. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing as what we did before. And we're going to say BCS place. Okay. And then we're going to, if it's good though, we're going to say we're going to store it into temp X. We do already have that set up from last time. So we've got a X value, and we're going to do the same thing. And we're going to say compare map height. And then if it's not correct, we're going to do BCS place again and store it in temp Y. Okay, and now we have theoretically valid X and Y locations. All right, now what we want to do is we want to advance the pointer for the map. We've used this before. I was saying we're going to use the map pointer, map width, temp Y, and temp X. So basically we're going to move the map pointer, start it at 0. Okay, we're at the start of the map, and we're going to move it to the X and Y location, and then we're going to check at that location to see if it is a floor tile. And if it is, we're golden. If not, start this process over again. Okay, so we're going to say LDY0, and the reason why is because we're going to be using the Y offset. So Y or LDA map pointer, comma Y, and we're going to say compare it with map floor. And if it's not a floor tile, then we're going to start over. And if it is a floor tile, though, we're going to say load in the temp variable, which is what our monster is here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say store it at map pointer, comma y. And then what we're going to do is we're going to decrement x. Now, if you remember, x comes in here as being the number of monsters that we're going to be placing, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to start it off with, say, like 5 monsters, and then we're going to decrement it each time. We go through here. Every time we've placed a monster, we're going to decrement it. And then, you know, until it equals 0, we're going to B&E pick. And then we can do RTS and P. And that is our place monsters procedure. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and call it. And we need to call it. It's very important that we call it after we create the map. And the reason why is because it's going to be looking on the map. And if the map is zeros, it's not going to be a map for. It's not, if it's ones, which is after the walls have been placed, it's, you know, there's not going to be a place to put the monster either. So we have to put it in right here. So what we're going to do is do place monsters. And now we need to put in, we need to use the pound sign to say how many we're going to put. So let's put 10 monsters. And let's say it's going to go up to 8 because that's how many monsters we're using for this floor, okay? And we're going to have 10 possible monsters. So let's see if it works. Okay. It's taking its time. It's really taking its time. So there's an issue in here. And that's what I was alluding to before. Basically, our random number generator is not the best in the world because it's only an 8-bit number that's generating. It's actually generating a pattern very, very quickly. And so we're getting the same numbers over and over again. So let's see if we can make this work though with fewer monsters. Now, the issue we run into is the fact that, you know, we're trying to place these monsters on a very small number of tiles that are actually valid in this map, right? So if you figure, we have a map that's about 128 by 128, and we've only put in, you know, 6 rooms or 8 rooms or something like that from our last time. So we really only have, when it comes down to, about 1/10 of the floor tiles that are actually valid. And so the problem is that it keeps trying the same numbers and it can't ever get there. And I have a solution for that, but let's see if we can do a few number of monsters, 4. For example. And I had issues with this until I figured out what was going on, and that was the fact that we were looping and we were getting the same numbers over and over again. So, so that didn't work. Can we place all monster? I think I actually had issues with even placing a single monster. So let's see if we can do one. Sits there in an endless loop, trying to place this monster. Okay. Doesn't look like it's working. So let us fix the problem actually. And that is that we're using an 8-bit random number. And the problem is that it isn't varied enough, okay? It will pick the same numbers periodically. So what we need to do is we need to bump that up to a 16-bit number, and we'll only use the last, 8-bit, the 8 bits anyway. But it's okay. We just need to modify our function to be able to use 16-bit, but we need to also add a new variable called rand16, because we have rand in here, if you remember, right here, and we need to have the high bit basically, or the high byte for rand. So I'm going to call it rand16 for now, and I'm going to stick it here. Obviously, I want to reorganize these and put these together. That would make sense. Right now we're calling it random 8. And we probably want to change that. We could call it a new one, call it random 16. And we can modify that, or we can create a new one, or we can modify it. I'm going to go ahead and I think create a new one just for now. Probably most likely in the future we'll just call it rand or something. Not a big deal. What we need to do here is we need to incorporate our rand 16 in there. So right here in our random, I'm going to call it random 16. And then we need to do a rotate left with rand 16. We need to seed rand 16 too, by the way. I'll do that in just 1 second. And then store rand, and then down here we're going to do an EOR with it as well. Okay. And so let's seed that. Doesn't matter what we seed it with right now. So I'm just going to do MVA 201 or something, rand 16. Doesn't matter. And now let's call rand 16 in place of random 8. Random 16 versus random 8. And most likely we'll be doing the same thing with every single one of these, and that's okay. We'll probably, refactor that later on. So let's see if we can place our one monster, okay? Okay, so theoretically, my joystick died. Theoretically, we have a monster in here somewhere. Let's go hunt him down. It might make it a little bit easier if we place more, but that's okay. We'll see if we can find him first. A lot of little places he could hide, so. Oh, there he is. Okay. So we have a skeleton here. And if we look, we can't walk onto him. He has collision detection on there, which is good. And that, is based on the way we've done our movement. He falls into the area that's not walkable, so it's automatic that you can't walk on him. So there we go. Yeah, he's a red skeleton, but yeah, it works. So let's have some fun with this, and let's add more monsters. Okay, so let's go, I scrolled and messed up here. Okay, place monsters. Let's place 10 of them. See how that works. Okay. There's one. Cool. Little goblin dude. A rat. Nice. Another skeleton. A rat. Okay, so this isn't bad. And what we're going to do is we're going to have to figure out when we're tuning the game to say how many monsters make sense. Because, it gets a little crazy if we go nutso with the number of monsters. Speaking of which, let's do that. Let's bump the number up to 50. See how this looks. Takes a little longer to spawn the dungeon, but still not bad. Okay, so now we have a couple monsters here. Okay, there's another one. Definitely more. Oh yeah. Oh boy, that's a lot of snakes. Okay. What's interesting is we still haven't blocked the door, so that's good. So that, there will be a case where, since we can't fight the monsters yet, it's very possible that they'll block a doorway. Okay, let's see. All right, let's go crazy here. So theoretically, the maximum number we could have would be 255. So let's go. Let's do it. Let's see how it goes. Okay, takes a little bit longer. Hopefully it completes. Yep. Okay, it's done. So a little bit longer, but not horrible. If we, we have a little loading screen on there, it'll be not a big deal. As long as the user knows that something is happening, that's fine. Okay. Oh boy. Here we got a bunch of monsters now. Now keep in mind, this is only the first 8 monsters. We have a bunch more monsters that we'd like to display. Oh wow. Okay. Now I've got a maze of monsters. That's funny. Okay. Let's see if I can get to a room. Okay. Cool. We got to the next room. Wow. That is a lot of rats. Okay. One of the things we noticed also is the bats, it doesn't have the floor much on there, so it's just a blank area, which looks a little odd. So we're probably going to want to either put some dots underneath him or center him, or probably a combination of both. Yeah, wow, there's a lot of monsters. So the way we've got it set up is really you're going to have a maximum of 255 monsters. I think that's going to be okay. I think that will be an okay limitation. Wow, look at the jumbled mess that is. That is crazy. Okay. Yep, now we've blocked the door. And our guy's going, halt. Yeah. That's what, yeah, that guy is always funny. It's like he's supposed to be like a fist or something, but it's like he looks like he's holding his hand up like, no, you shall not pass. Yeah. So cool. So we now have monsters. I think what's going to really be nice is when we animate those monsters. And that's actually what we have planned for next episode. So we got to do some artwork and make some cool animations and stuff with these guys. So that's all we have for today. So till next time, see you in the next adventure.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of this kind of content, be sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. I post new videos all the time and I wouldn't want you to miss any. If you'd like to see more of this series, be sure to click up here. And if you'd like to see something else, be sure to click up here.